This is News 12 Law Call.
Good evening. Thanks so much for staying up for News 12 Law Call Zoom edition. I'm your host, Neil Gordon. Very pleased to welcome in her inaugural appearance on Law Call, Juvenile Court Judge Kelly Spencer from Richmond County. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Wonderful. And the founder of the Hawk Law Group, Vic Hawk, is with us as well. Vic, I know you want to give a proper introduction to the judge.
That's right. We're very lucky tonight to have Judge Kelly Spencer join us, especially in our community where there is a ongoing piece of litigation as well as differing views concerning the need for Judicial Justice Center. Judge Kelly Spencer is raised in our community, went to school locally, graduated from Davidson, then went off to Loyola in New Orleans, where she got her law degree and has come back home to help our community. Judge Spencer is a full-time judge in the local juvenile court, and she's here to give us information that we need to help us make our decisions about what we actually do for our juveniles.
That's right. Anything from counsel to arrest as well. And before we get started taking some of our email questions, Judge, it's been 6 months since the pandemic started. What is the status of the courtroom now, and how are you kind of processing the cases and working through them?
Well, I will say since the pandemic hit, it certainly has changed the way that we are able to conduct business. At the height of the pandemic, when we were experiencing the mandatory shutdown, we didn't get to stop. The services that we provide for our children are essential. And so we had to find ways to still be able to conduct business, but to keep people safe. And so during that time, what we were having to do was a lot of Zoom conferencing, telephoning. We just had to be very flexible, but we couldn't let business stop. Now, as we're starting to kind of get back to normal, we are still looking to engage a lot of the recommendations from the CDC so that we can conduct in-person hearings. And this has allowed us to move forward with some of the types of hearings that we potentially couldn't hear back during the height of the pandemic. And that would include, for example, terminations of parental rights, trials. We can now hear those matters. From time to time, we still may have to Zoom people in if there are concerns for them being in court. But at this point, we're back to business and we're hearing as much as we can.
Well, thank you, Judge. And Zoom feels like it's here to stay. I mean, we've done our program for several months. Vic, you mentioned the climate we live in now with law enforcement and young folks, and JJ had a question. I know you wanted to chime in on it, and JJ feels there's a lot of distrust for law enforcement right now. And Vic, do you have any advice to young folks about interacting with the police, even if it's the first time they have an opportunity to do so?
That's right. I'm going to give you two analogies. The issue on a stop is safety for the person being stopped and safety for the police officer making the stop. In the medieval times, the way you always knew that someone was not going to pull a sword on you is that he reached out with his right hand to shake your hand. In my opportunity to travel around the world, I've been to Brazil, and when we went to Brazil, whenever a police officer stopped you or there was a checkpoint, you were required to turn on your inside lights and then raise your hands, again, for safety of the police officers and safety for the persons that were being stopped. You do have a right to not respond to questions from a police officer, except as to those questions dealing with licensing and registration of the vehicle. The issue is safety. In other words, what can you do safely inside the car if you're stopped by a police officer? Well, I would think that a common sense thing would be first to turn on the inside lights of the vehicle, to roll your window down, and then show the police officer your hands. You see in stops many times, the police officers say, show me your hands, show me your hands. Because within a fraction of a second, a gun can be pulled and the police officer be injured. By the same token, your safety is a concern. And you know the police officer's armed, you know the police officer has authority over you, you know the police officer has a taser, you know the police officer's trained to defend himself or put you in custody. So you have concerns for your own safety. I think the practical thing to do is to respond respectively, turn on the lights inside your car. If they ask questions beyond which you wish to assert, in which you want to assert your freedoms, you can say, I'm sorry, officer, I'm not going to answer that question, and you certainly can. Now, there are two options at that point. The options are for the police officer to charge you if he's going to charge you, or the police officer to let you go. And I would expect in most cases, the police officer would charge you with something if he had probable cause to believe you're committing a crime like DUI, or there's a pending warrant. Comply with the police officer's request and you're not likely to have a problem. If the police officer says that you can't go, don't leave. Just stay there. It'll all play out for your benefit if you do. Remember, the main issue on a stop is safety for you and safety for the police officer. Be respectful, be compliant, but also understand you have the right not to respond to questions after a certain number of types of questions like driver's license, registration, things of that nature. As long as you're showing your hands, as long as both of you remain calm, the stop should go without any incident. We see time and time again where stops occur, which people get hurt, both those that are stopped as well as the police officers, because people do not follow those common sense approaches to the stop. When police officers are in the wrong, they should be punished. When the individuals are in the wrong, they should be punished. That's the way our legal system works. And luckily now, most police officers have video of what's occurred. And when a police officer is out of bounds, there's a consequence. Just like if you're out of bounds, there's a consequence. So that's my recommendation to you. You can't reach out with your right hand to show you're peaceful, but you can turn on the inside lights and show your hands and then create a much calmer atmosphere in the stop.
Good sage advice, Vic. And Judge, I know your courtroom on Telfair Street is maybe less than a mile from the border of North Augusta, South Carolina. So I'm wondering if you get a lot of interstate situations. Denise has a question for you. Denise's son has 4 months left on his minor possession probation in the state of Georgia, but he would like to leave the state of Georgia to attend college in South Carolina. Can he go?
Well, here's the first thing I would recommend. Denise's son needs to make sure that he reaches out to his probation officer, lets his probation officer know what the situation is. And from there, they can determine if it's something that's more temporary, just giving him permission to attend. If it's something that's going to be a little bit more long-term, his probation officer may recommend that they just transfer the probation from here in Georgia over to the county in South Carolina where he will be attending, so that they can supervise and monitor his probation for the remaining balance of his probation sentence.
Do you get situations like that come across your desk because we live so close, the two states?
We do all the time. We have a great relationship with, especially North Augusta, Aiken area. We have a great relationship with them because there is so much of that as far as transferring, working together, seeing how we can facilitate things.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Judge. And on the other side of the break, we'll look at another problem related to juveniles, which is stalking. Stick around. We'll take our break, and you're watching the Juvenile Justice Edition of News 12 Law Call.
Welcome back to News 12 Law Call with award-winning broadcaster Neil Gordon. And from the Hawk Law Group, attorney Vic Hawk, with more than 30 years experience and millions of dollars awarded to his clients. Attorney Reed Sanders, born and raised in Thompson and known for his strong courtroom skills. With criminal law, former police officer, now lawyer Sean Merzlach. And with South Carolina injury law, trial attorney Chase Hawk. Plus guest attorneys from across the CSRA. Your rights, your calls, live. News 12 Law Call.
Hi there, and welcome back to News 12 Law Call, our Juvenile Justice Edition. I'm your host, Neil Gordon. We're also joined by the founder of the Hawk Law Group, Vic Hawk, as well as Judge Kelly Spencer, who oversees the Juvenile Court on Telfair Street in Augusta. Hello again to both of you.
Good to see you, Neil. We're ready.
Absolutely. You know, we have so many email questions for this program, and there's so much topical information going on. The good news is we're going to march along this week, and then next week we're going to do a second edition. The judge has been kind enough to stay on and do another program. Judge, share with us the status of your courtroom and maybe some of the needs that you think you have going forward to help the community even further.
Certainly. Well, I think as a starting point, it's important for people to know what we actually do in juvenile court. I think there might be a lot of misconceptions that we only handle what we call delinquent children, so children who have committed criminal offenses. But beyond that, we also have to handle matters that involve children who are in unsafe homes, and we're having to consider if there is abuse and neglect and that it would be unsafe for that child to remain in the home, do we then have to remove the child? We also deal with children who are generally in need of services. And so that could include children who are truant from school, meaning they've missed 10 or more days of school without an appropriate excuse for missing those days. It could be a child who is habitually what we call disobedient, unruly. They're not listening to their parents' rules. And so we have a lot of issues that we do deal with in the juvenile court beyond just the criminal aspect. And currently we have technically 3 full-time judges as well as a part-time judge. And between the 4 of us, we are having to share courtroom space. Here in Richmond County, we have 1 courtroom and 1 hearing room that are made available for juvenile court use. And so you can imagine with the amount of matters that we are trying to handle that it can be somewhat problematic trying to share that 1 courtroom space, especially when the courtroom is it has a holding cell. So if we have a child that's maybe in lockup, or we have a parent of a child who's in lockup, they still have every right to attend a hearing and to be present for the hearing. Well, if we don't have a holding cell, we can't go forward with that hearing. And our smaller hearing room does not have that capability. It does not have a holding cell. And so we are essentially limited to that 1 courtroom space to share amongst all of us. And what we ideally would like is the opportunity to be able to house all of our services under 1 roof. So that would include having our courtroom space, as well as being able to provide some of our services to our children that would include counseling, tutoring, anything that they need under 1 roof. And what we're seeing with a lot of our parents especially is that they don't have the ability to miss work, to have to come to court on one day, then to have to go and submit for an assessment another day, then to have to take their child to a counseling appointment. And it gets to be a bit much. If we could house it under 1 roof, we think that we would solve a lot of those issues for our parents and allow these families to be able to come back together much sooner.
Vic, is this a legislative matter or is it a budgetary matter? The city of Augusta, how does all this sort of work itself out?
Well, right now it's with the city council or the county commissioners. They've been considering what to do with the JLEC for the last 3 years. And basically, there's been no decision other than now demolishing the JLEC. The JLEC has 4 courtrooms. It has 4 lockups. It would facilitate tremendously the resolution of juvenile court matters. Obviously, you got 4 judges using one courtroom for resolution of juvenile issues that involve delinquency. And it's just not manageable in that fashion. There have been estimates which prove that the JLEC can be renovated for less than, or not much more than the cost of demolishing it. And there's a great need to have that facility. And more importantly, what people don't realize in the community is that that is one aspect of the need for the juvenile court. But right now, some of the officers are in the municipal building, some of the aides are at Tubman. And these kids who have disruptive families don't have ability to go from one location to another to get the services. It creates a bottleneck, an unnecessary bottleneck to the community. And all of these services could be housed in the JLEC and the Craig Houghton Elementary School, which is not being used. And Judge Brown locally has issued a judicial order ordering that these facilities be prepared for a juvenile justice center, and that's now pending before the Court of Appeals. We don't know if they're going to hear the initial appeal or there are going to be additional hearings concerning that. But Judge Brown is attempting to force the hand of the county to provide reasonable facilities so that the juvenile court system can work for our community. The kids in Richmond County are just as valuable as the kids in Aiken County, Columbia County, Burke County, Edgefield County. They need the reasonable facilities to get the services that are available or should be available to those kids.
Well, commissioners, if you're listening, I can vouch for the fact that the judge had to move courtrooms just to do this Zoom interview. So the problem is real, right?
It certainly is.
Okay. Well, we'll take our last break and then come back and we'll try to fire off several of your email questions. Stick around. You're watching News 12 Law Call. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with the Juvenile Court, they're over on Telfair Street at the 6th floor, and the website is augustaga.gov/1859/Juvenile Court. Quickest way to reach the Hawk Law Group, you've got the address and web, just dial all 4s with a 706 area code. We want to get to our email question from Jennifer, a stalking question for you, Vic. Vic, Jennifer's daughter's ex-boyfriend's been stalking her. The police say there's nothing to be done unless he tries to hurt her. What can we do to get him to leave her alone?
It's pretty easy, Jennifer. You just apply to a local magistrate for a bond for that person to stay away from you because you have concerns that the person could possibly harm your daughter. In addition to that, I'd send him a certified mail letter not to have any direct or indirect contact with your daughter and stay off of your property. In the event that the judge does issue an order ordering him to stay away and not have any contact, and he violates it, he will have committed a felony in Georgia. So there are a lot of options available to you. And you
Okay. Yeah, Judge Spencer, Claire's 17-year-old daughter's out of control. The family doesn't know what to do. Claire's stealing, doing a lot of drinking. You think Claire should call the police? Any options through the court?
There certainly are options through the court. She can look to reach out to the juvenile court and she can talk to them about filing a complaint. This would likely be something that comes through our chins as far as a child who is being habitually disobedient, not listening to household rules, giving her mom a lot of grief, drinking. And we would have her go through the intake process. And once we deemed it appropriate for the juvenile court, we could start looking to implement some services to make things better for her daughter and herself.
Tell the public what CHINS is.
Yes, CHINS is our children who are in need of services, and it's kind of a catch-all because it can cover children who are having educational needs, and we can do educational assessments to try to get them back on track if they are behind in their schooling. It also can address where we have a child who maybe has some drug and alcohol issues, and we can do a drug and alcohol assessment and then look to implement any necessary counseling and other treatment services. It deals with a wealth of issues that children are experiencing now that maybe it doesn't arise to the level of actual criminal activity. So it also, thank you.
Oh, sure. And I'm sorry to interrupt. We just want to squeeze one more in before we go. Another parental question for you from Jamila. The son is a good kid, not sure about his friends, though. A few have already been in trouble. If someone Jamila gets caught with drugs on them, can he get in trouble too? About 30 seconds for you.
I'll say the quick answer is yes. So always know who your friends are and what they have on them and what they have in their car.
Guilt by association sometimes.
Exactly.
Well, they just lock everybody up until somebody claims responsibility, but you certainly don't want to go through that because you have the guy that's possessing the drugs is the most likely one not to accept responsibility.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, there's so many topics from the YDC to marijuana possession, a jury trial that we haven't gotten to. So if it's okay with Judge, we'll hold you over. If it's okay, and we'll do part 2 that we'll record and we'll air the following Sunday.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate
And thank
your
y'all for
time.
watching.
Thank you, Vic. We'll see you again next Sunday.